CEOs and doctors, among others. And today we want to bring in two congressmen who are tackling this legislation. Democratic Congressman Frank Pallone is from New Jersey. He is the chair of the Health Subcommittee. And Republican Congressman John Fleming is from Louisiana, and he also happens to be a family physician. Gentlemen, a lot to get to, and we wanted to present four ideas and get your reactions that potentially could save billions of dollars that don't appear to be getting much discussion. Instead, we're talking about spending more money in Washington, whether for good purposes or not good purposes is a conversation we could have. But we wanted to just throw these out here. So here's our first savings plan. The fact is that 1/3 of adult Americans are actually diagnosed as obese. Obesity, though, is covered currently by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And what that has done, according to many companies we've spoken to, is prevented them from incentivizing weight loss, as in if you lose a certain amount of weight, you will get an increase or a bonus, and if you don't, your pay could be docked. Our solution would be to allow some companies to come up with creative ideas, and to do that, you'd need to change the Americans with Disabilities Act to exclude obesity in some way, shape, or form. Congressman Fleming, is that an idea we should consider?
I think we should, Aaron. In my own practice, I've had a number of patients who've come to me wanting disability stickers for their automobiles and that sort of thing, merely because they're obese, overweight, and have difficulty walking. And oftentimes my response is, that's really what I want you to do. If you're going to lose weight and be healthier, you're going to have to exercise more. And of course, I as a physician exercise as well. So I do think there is, I would like to see more details, but I think there is some good points to be made about that.
Congressman Pallone, what do you say to that, especially since if people just lived healthier lives, ate better and exercised more, our health care costs would go down. We wouldn't need to spend more.
I agree, and I agree with what Congressman Fleming said, but I would say two things. One is that you probably don't have to amend the ADA, the American Disabilities Act. I mean, in the health care reform bill that we've introduced, there are a lot of incentives that go to preventative care and eating well. But I would also point out that it will not be scored. In other words, when you talk about these, the amount of money that has to be paid for it to proceed with the health care reform, these preventative measures are not scored. In other words, they create a lot of savings over the long run, as the bill does as a whole, but it's not something that we can use for budgeting purposes in passing the bill.
Understood you on that point. Let's get to the second idea. This is another statistic that may surprise a lot of people. Some of our viewers know it. We've talked about it before. 30% of Medicare costs are incurred in the last year of life in this country. The problem is many Americans, if they had a choice earlier in life, would make different choices about when the plug was pulled. I mean, I know it's a sort of tacky way of saying it, but people would make different decisions. A solution could be to require living wills for all Americans. Some say that could save a couple of $100 million a year. Congressman Fleming.
Well, I very much encourage people to participate in living wills. My wife and I have one. I encourage it for my patients. I stop short of mandating it by law. But I do think living wills are important from the patient's perspective, not from a cost savings viewpoint.
And I would agree, Aaron, that with what Congressman Fleming said, we do actually encourage it in this bill, but because it's not mandated, which I wouldn't want to do, you don't achieve the cost savings without the mandate.
Did you say you would want to do that, though? You would want to mandate a living will?
No, I wouldn't. I would agree with Congressman Fleming that we should encourage it, and we will encourage it in this legislation. But because there's no mandate, which there is not in the bill, it doesn't get scored.
Why not mandate it?
Well, I think the feeling is that, you're now getting into a whole area that deals with morality and, people's end-of-life decisions. And if you mandate it, you touch upon that, and I think it would make it more difficult to pass the bill, frankly.
And my response would be that I think that the federal government interferes far too much in our lives already. I think this would simply be another intrusion.
All right, now we have time. I wanted to get time for more, but we have time for one more here. This is an amazing thing, and I've heard this from many companies that provide health care for their employees, that employees consistently demand the drugs that are advertised on television or in magazines because they're advertised, because they know about them. The problem, and this is incredible, you all no doubt are aware of this statistic, 84% of the drug costs in this country are for branded drugs, when there are often generic options. So a potential solution could be to utterly ban direct-to-consumer advertising. That would save $4 billion a year and not allow the drug companies to advertise directly to consumers. It seems outrageous they do it. There is only the United States and New Zealand on earth where you are allowed to advertise directly to consumers. Congressman Pallone, will you ban it?
No, and the reason is twofold. One is that it probably would run into First Amendment problems and be challenged in the courts and probably be successful. And the second thing is that the opposition from the broadcasters and the media would probably kill it. We talked about actually not allowing it to be deductible on the corporation's, tax returns. And I know that this was tried once before, and there was overwhelming opposition from the broadcasters, the newspapers, and everyone else. I think that between the First Amendment problem and the opposition that would come from the media, it just wouldn't happen.
Well, I work for the media, but I would say in the case of this health care thing, it would seem, Congressman Fleming, the first thing we'd want to do would be kill all the lobbyists. To get a good solution, you don't want to listen to who's got the most money telling you what to do.
Well, I agree, Aaron, in that comment right there, but I don't think that we should pass a law to prevent advertising, and I'll tell you why. I do strongly encourage the use of generic prescriptions, no doubt about it. But the interesting thing is these commercials actually bring patients in who ask about treatments, particularly preventive treatments like for cholesterol, that I can then manage their expectations, encourage them to use generics. So I think it actually helps in preventive care.
One final question for you, Congressman Fleming, on that front, though, and you as a doctor no doubt saw this analysis where someone said you could give every American even a generic Lipitor to fight cholesterol, and that would incur a great cost, and you might save a couple of lives doing that. But not enough to make up for the cost, right? So we might have to make that tough choice. You think taking a pill a day is preventative, but maybe as a society it's too costly.
I wouldn't agree with that comment, at least not about cholesterol-lowering drugs. These statistics tell us that since cholesterol-lowering drugs have come on the market, heart disease has dropped by 2/3. So while I wouldn't want to put it in the water system, I do think a physician should recommend it and prescribe it. I think the broad use of it has cut heart disease dramatically.
Erin, if I could add, we are going to try during the markup process in committee to add generic biologic drugs, which would save maybe about $10 billion. We don't have a consensus on exactly how to do it, but we're trying to achieve that consensus, and I think that will go in the bill before it finally goes to the president, and that would save about $10 billion. These are the biologic drugs for which there is no generic path right now.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate your taking the time for a thoughtful conversation. Democratic Congressman Frank Pallone, as we said, chair of the Health Committee from New Jersey, Republican Congressman John Fleming from Louisiana, also a family physician. One more headline to share from you on this front. Charles Schumer